Welcome back to Recap Pro. Today I'll recap a sci-fi thriller film called Radius. Spoilers incoming. The movie begins with Liam having just woken up from a car accident, blood pouring from his head, and completely bewildered. A passing car sees him staggering to the side of the road and honking for aid, but the driver dies instantly after drifting off the road. When Liam attempts to contact for assistance on his mobile phone, he discovers that he has no idea where he is or what his name is. Unexpectedly, a dead bird descends from the sky, taking something from his pocket as he does so. When he checks his wallet, he discovers that his name is Liam Hartwell. While returning to town, Liam stops at a roadside diner, where he discovers that everyone has been killed. A vehicle slams into him as he is leaving the restaurant where he was at. Liam tore his sleeves in order to hide his nose owing to the overwhelming odor emanating from the dead corpses in his close surroundings. Meanwhile, Liam is attempting to find his home and is walking towards it after he has located his residence. He attempts to knock on the door, but no one answers. He enters via the back door with a rock. The news reports speculate that a virus would be the cause, and he responds by covering his nose and mouth with a handkerchief to protect himself from the illness. In the event that he discovers a nearby farmer, he makes an effort to warn him to leave the area. When the farmer approaches Liam, he collapses and dies instantly. In fact, when Liam learns that animals also die as he approaches, he understands that he, rather than a virus, is the source of the strange fatalities. Liam is attempting to determine the distance between himself and the animal that is now dead. In the midst of viewing the area surrounding his apartment, he became aware of a car heading in his direction and instantly fled from the vehicle, fearing that someone might be killed again as a result of his presence. Liam returns to his house and goes in search of ropes and markers that he can use to form a circle around his property when he gets there. As previously said, he also hides behind closed doors and windows to avoid being seen by others. Later that night, police officers visit the residence to talk with Liam and find out where he has vanished. Suddenly, a flock of birds begins to fall from the sky as the female cop moves in his direction, prompting the officer to fire her weapon. Over that same night, a woman with amnesia shows up at Liam's house, claiming she was with him at the time of the car accident and that she has come to look for him. Despite Liam's best efforts to advise the woman to maintain her distance from him, the woman is knocking on the door anyhow. He is surprised that she is able to approach him without dying while he is in the midst of unlocking the door, and he chooses to talk with her. Neither of them understands why they were traveling together or what caused the vehicle accident. However, Liam advises the woman that she should walk inside rather than around the building. Liam is surprised to see that the dog does not succumb as he anticipated upon sniffing Liam. They proceed inside the home and, as they do so, they talk about the automobile accident as well as the rising number of deaths in the surrounding region that had occurred. Despite the fact that Liam does not reveal his theory about the deaths, he does interrogate the woman, who has been given the name Jane Doe, about whether or not anything weird has happened to her lately. When she asserts that the hospital testing found nothing strange, this is a red flag. The next morning, Liam and Jane go to the location of the car accident to look for clues. They drove by a familiar bridge on their way to the incident site, and Liam informs Jane that they had been there before the tragedy occurred and that he believes he knows who Jane is. On the other hand, Jane has had a bizarre dream, which she tells Liam about. Jane's sole recollection of her own identity is that of her sister. Liam and Jane continued their journey to the spot when they came upon a charred circle. Liam believes it is the result of a fire, but a memory arises in his head at the same time. As soon as he heard about the accident, he inquired about Jane's whereabouts, and Liam eventually confessed his idea. He explains all of the inexplicable deaths that have been reported in the press and claims that they were caused by him. Jane responds in a terrified manner, pleading with him to keep away from her. A passing officer witnesses their confrontation and interrogates Liam. As soon as Jane walks away, she succumbs to what she discovered. Suddenly, Jane is alarmed and runs from the dead police officer. Liam rushes after her, pleading with her to stop. Jane is reassured by Liam that she will not die if she remains in close proximity to him. With the help of a goat, Liam shows to Jane that every live thing that approaches him would die until Jane is within 50 feet of him. Liam wanted to visit a hospital in order to have certain tests performed, but Jane was admitted to the hospital after the accident, and medical testing revealed nothing abnormal. Liam first intends to inform the authorities, but Jane persuades him that they will not take him seriously. Instead, she recommends that he undergo testing at a hospital. They awaited the outcome of the tests when it was announced that another person died on his nearby property. The cops come to the hospital just as the doctor announces that Liam is in good condition. As a precaution against the authorities attempting to separate them, Liam and Jane depart. Jane comes to a halt in front of a missing people board, recalling something about a poster. She notices that Liam has already boarded an elevator when she regains consciousness. She rushes to keep up with it as near as she possibly can. Liam tells the people inside to leave as soon as the doors open, and he attempts to isolate himself until Jane can come back inside the elevator with him. They ultimately leave the hospital as a group, pleased that no one has passed away. They were able to get away from the police officers who were pursuing them. Later that night, they made their way to a secluded property where they could hide. Jane notices that something is lacking from her persona and informs Liam of this. They remained the night in the vehicle, sleeping in the car. Liam is awakened from his sleep as he suddenly recalls a scene from the accident the next morning. In accordance with news sources, Jane's true name is Rose Darewood. Her husband, Sam, begs her to return to the family home. Jane quickly informs Liam of what she has uncovered and advises that they seek assistance from her husband. Initially, Liam is reluctant to comply with Rose's offer, but he eventually accepts and goes to visit her spouse. She utilized the information she had gleaned from the news to track down her spouse. Rose and Liam made their way to her husband's residence. On the other hand, Sam is skeptical of their explanation and even accuses Liam of being a terrorist at first. Liam again shows his point by killing animals who get too near him. Sam sent Liam and Rose to an isolated place in order to ensure that both of them would be safe. During her search for her long-lost twin sister Lily, Rose fled and was never recovered. Sam confesses that Rose vanished while on the lookout for her. Rose's sister had gone missing 9 years ago, so she set out to find her, which resulted in her being despondent while she searched for her. Rose was on the verge of taking her own life, and how Liam intervened and saved her life are recalled. Liam and Rose's friendship develops and grows, and Sam becomes angry and reminds Rose that she is completely unfamiliar with Liam. When Liam and Rose insist on fleeing together to Liam's remote cabin despite the fact that Sam is not with them, the situation becomes even more dire. In the end, Sam informs the police, although he subsequently regrets doing so since he knows he should have alerted them sooner. Interaction with the cops ensues when Sam answers the door and participates in a conversation with officers. Instead of addressing the matter, Sam was captured by police officers who took him into custody. During the process of separating Liam and Rose, the cops and everyone else looking around the place and onlookers perish, forcing Sam to comply with their original plan to divide them. Sam went to the corpses of the cops who had died in order to search for the keys and depart the scene. A mysterious cosmic phenomenon has hit the Earth in the area where they were involved in their accident, and they discover this while on their way to the cabin. They arrived at the cabin and decided to remain for the night in order to get some rest. The next day, Rose and Liam come up with a strategy to get rid of the unusual phenomenon occurring to them and hunt for a solution together. Liam ventured outside the cabin to look into the charred circle of bushes. While searching the cabin, Rose uncovers proof that Liam is a serial murderer who kidnapped and murdered Lily. During the period of the cosmic anomaly, Liam recalls making an effort to kidnap and murder Rose, which he failed. Everything becomes evident to both of them at the exact same time. Returning to the day of the accident, Rose attempts to flee from Liam, who warns her that she will never be able to locate her sister again as lightning hits them. So, the charred circle that Liam discovered makes sense now. Rose walked out of the cabin and confronted Liam about what had happened. She had brought a firearm with her. Rose inquires about the whereabouts of her sister, but Liam cannot recall even the most basic of details. Rose persuades Liam to get on the river to locate her sister, but he abruptly comes to a standstill. Rose pulls the trigger of her rifle out of frustration. As Rose and Liam return to the cabin to face Liam, a man and his sons kidnap both Rose and Liam and hold them captive. The father orders his sons to assassinate Liam, whom he refers to as a terrorist. Rose initially objects but eventually agrees to allow them to remove her from Liam. When one of the sons and his father are killed, the surviving son shoots Rose with a gun. Liam's aura kills the surviving son, and he transports Rose to the hospital in a car. The movie ends with Rose and Liam being separated from the hospital. Rose is on the search for Liam and is concerned that more people may die from their separation. On the other hand, Liam shoots himself in the head to prevent other people from dying as a result of his aura. Rose heard the gunshot and cried herself out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe my channel for more videos like this. See you in the next video.